kind of funny how most of the time I have no idea what I'm doing, yet here I am making a video about the thing that I'm doing. Wow, I'm such a professional. Hello. So today I kind of wanted to talk about my digital art process because, well, I think it's always interesting to see how everyone approaches it. Digital art has such diverse tools and techniques that basically every artist has their own way of doing it. And maybe you guys who also do digital art have something completely different. So yeah, just here I am sharing how I do it personally. This is more like an explanation than a tutorial. Please don't view it as one. I'm very bad at explaining, especially teaching. So yeah, this is just me showing you how I do it. So first of all, the main program I use is Procreate. That's what you are seeing right now, even though I use other programs as well, including Ibis Paint and Clip Studio Paint. I used assets from both programs in this illustration, but it's more like small things I do in the program and then I import them into Procreate. Mini tangent about Clip Studio Paint, but I'm maybe thinking about trying to go onto that program just because I bought a 1-year license, me small brain, and then proceeded to not use it a lot. So yeah, maybe I'm gonna try and get my money's worth and use that program more. But anyways, right now I use Procreate. Usually my canvas size is the default paper size, so 11 by 8.5 inches. Yeah, it's just in Procreate. The brushes I use, well, my main brush, the one that I do 90% of the work with, the one you see right now, is my custom brush. I also use another of my custom brushes for more smooth lines. It's mainly what I use for my base colors. I also use the airbrush and some other default Procreate brushes, but yeah, my main brushes are my custom brushes. So yeah. Now about the actual illustration process and the drawing. Quick note, the drawing itself is fan art of the virtual singer Hatsune Miku, and the outfit she's wearing is an original outfit I made her, inspired by 2000s emo scene aesthetics, MySpace stuff. I really like those aesthetics. Anyways, tangent, back to the topic of the video. So I start my illustration process with a sketch or a draft. The very first thing I sketch out is the overall pose or silhouette. My focus is on movement and composition. You probably saw me redo it a few times in the beginning. That's because I don't usually get it right in the first try. Even though I do thumbnails and planning in my sketchbook usually. Even if I do kind of have an idea of what I want, I take a few attempts to get it right. And then when I'm done with the very first one, and again, composition is really important. You probably saw me try and place it on the paper. So yeah, composition. And when I'm done focusing on all of that, I do a second sketch where I focus on proportions. That's when I kind of try to make it look like a character and not just a blob. Sometimes I also put some colors and values in my draft. But I didn't do that with this illustration, but yeah, sometimes I do a colored draft. Yeah, that's kind of what I do for my sketch. Sometimes I have a third layer just to chisel out some details, but yeah, I don't usually do more than 3 layers of sketching. And then I move on to inking, or I guess whatever I call inking. It's way too messy for anyone to consider it proper inking, but the purpose I use that layer as is my inking layer. Little parenthesis, I have no idea what happened in this illustration, but my inking is like a lot smoother than it is on average. Especially with the clothes. I don't know what happened during this illustration, but I was just like, yes, let me just do the smoothest line art I've ever done. Normally, it's literally a mess. Normally, what I consider inking is what a normal person would consider like a sketch layer, so yeah. Anyways, I kind of quote-unquote clean up everything, but yeah, it's kind of just that hold the base color that goes in it afterwards. Usually it's like one of the most time-consuming steps of my process. One of my biggest flaws in my art is my perfectionism. Like, I tend to focus way too much on very small details and do something over and over again until I think it's perfect, even though no one will notice the small change. Oh well, everyone has their flaws to work on, including me. But yeah, line art is like painfully time-consuming to do, but yeah. And then, after line art, I didn't show it. Oh no, my commentary has caught up to the speed paint, and I can't really explain what you haven't seen yet. Well, okay, let's focus on what's happening now. The smoothest line art I've... Oh yeah. Sometimes I modify my line art last minute. I try to do every planning thing I can in the drafting phase, but as you can see right now, I decided to change her hairstyle last minute, and her original hairstyle was already fully inked. So what I did is I added like a red draft underneath, and I'm kind of trying to keep as much as I can of what I've already inked. So yeah, it's kind of tricky, but it's doable to modify my inking. So yeah, like last minute changes can be done, but I try to not do them a whole lot. I also try to do all the transforming and liquefy stuff during the sketching phase, like flipping the canvas and stuff like that, because, well, it tends to leave my lines a bit pixelated. So yeah, just try to do everything I can that is modification related in the drafting phase, and then when I do inking, I try to limit the whole modifying stuff as much as I can. But yeah, like when when I'm drawing a character with a lot of accessories and details, I kind of add them at the last minute. My drafting is more about the overall impression of the drawing than specific details. Yeah, anyways, that's it about inking. Right now, I am doing my kind of base layer. What I do is I usually grab a really bright color that contrasts well with my canvas color. Oh yeah, I always have my canvas gray, because I don't want to bleach out my eyeballs by staring at a white canvas for 7 hours. So yeah, gray canvas it is. So I pick a contrasting color with the background. This time it's this very bright green, and I try to go through everything manually because my line art is a mess and it's kind of textured as well, so I can't use the bucket tool. Yeah, my entire illustration process is without me using the bucket tool. Yes, I am an actual crazy person. I do everything manually. What is wrong with me? Anyways, when I'm done doing my base clip tool, I change the color so it's not very bright and eye bleachy anymore. And then I put my base colors on it of the actual illustration. Usually if I draft my colors, I have my draft on top of it so I can color pick the colors and put them on. But this time I was drawing fan art and I know what Miku's colors are, so I didn't plan everything ahead. But yeah, so with my base color, I also focus on organizing my layers. Like I make sure to have everything separated so it's ready for rendering. So yeah, my base color stage is basically just separating everything and getting ready for my rendering. Again, I can't use the bucket tool because my line art is not bucket tool friendly. I'm sure there's maybe a quicker way to do this, but I didn't figure it out yet. Yeah, I'd say my illustration process is unnecessarily time-consuming because of my unableness to use the bucket tool. Honestly, if there was a program with a bucket tool that could somehow deal with my whatever I call line art, it would make my life so much easier. But I didn't find such a thing yet, so I'm stuck with coloring everything manually. Oh well, it somehow works out. And yeah, like with lots of small accessories like the ones you can see here, again, I do everything manually. And yeah, like in the bigger picture, when you zoom out, you really couldn't see it if it wasn't perfectly colored, like if I didn't use my base color layer or something. But my perfectionism problem, I have to have everything be organized and perfectly base colored, so I once again waste a lot of time on small meaningless details. Oh well, I guess it's just my way of approaching my art. Yeah, I would move on to explaining my rendering, but I'm still doing the base colors in my speed paint. I guess let's completely ignore what's going on screen, and I'm gonna start explaining how I do my rendering. Because my rendering, I would call it very painterly. Like, what I do, I call it illustration, but I'd say it's a weird hybrid of illustration and digital painting. Like, my way of doing it is very painterly. Even though I technically have everything separated by layers and line art, I sometimes do an overall overpainting layer at the very end. I didn't do that with this specific illustration, but like, I do it semi-often. Anyways, it's like a weird love child between illustration and digital painting. And I do most of my rendering on the base color layer. Like, I alpha lock it and draw on top of that. Some people use blend modes for rendering, like shading with multiplier, for example. I don't do that. I handpick all of my colors in my rendering, so all my shading and all my highlights and everything is on one layer that is a normal color layer, I guess. I put kind of where the main thing rendering area is. Explaining is my passion. I try to focus on lighting. That's what I do when I render. I usually keep in mind where the light source is for the illustration. With this one, the light source is kind of from up, so yeah. I also try to have a natural feeling balance between cell shading and soft shading. Like, not cell shading, but like, for example, the sketch, like, it's casting a very direct light on her legs, so it looks like cell shading. So yeah, what I mean is I try to blend several shading techniques to make it look as natural as possible. So yeah, like, some people would call it over-rendering. I try to have my rendering more like realistic leaning. Obviously what I do is very far from realism, but like, I'd say it's a bit more rendering focused than your average anime law art style. Oh no, I think I hit the point where my brain is struggling to speak. Why am I even doing YouTube? Why am I like this? See, you were expecting a nice art process video and all you got was a mental breakdown. You are welcome. Anyways, back to actually explaining what I'm doing. So yeah, rendering is very painterly focused to me. I use a mix of the brush tool and the color picker tool for in-between colors, for example. And yes, I use the blend tool. Very controversial. hear me out, okay? Sometimes it just helps make transitions smooth. I think I do an okay job at not over blending, so yeah, I use the blending tool as a tool, something that helps me out and not something I abuse. At least I hope I don't. People can have their own opinions about my art style, obviously. Eyes. My way of drawing eyes used to be a lot more simple, but then I was like, okay, but what if I over-rendered everything, including the eyes? I don't know. I don't really have one specific artist in mind who my eyeball style is similar to, just your average Pixiv-esque semi-over-rendered anime eyes. Like, you know anime art styles. Compared to some art styles, my eyes aren't really that extra. Yeah, this is unrelated to eyes, but in general, I try to pick 2 shading colors for everything, like one darker one and one even darker one, but again, it kind of changes. Like sometimes if I want the overall values to look right, I have to add more different shades. Value is something really important. There's this trick that I stole from my flatmate. Hi Ryan, if you're watching. Anyways, basically I draw a layer that is completely filled with the color black on top of everything, and then I set it on color, like the blend mode color, and it makes everything basically be in black and white, so I can check if the values look okay on the piece, like overall. Yeah, so values are really important for everything to not blend in and have the lighting look dynamic and like it makes sense. Yeah, one really underrated piece of, I guess, technical knowledge, I think, is lighting. Lighting determines everything. Lighting can be warm, lighting can be cold, lighting can be strong, it can be dispersed, it can be natural, it can be artificial. It really has a huge impact on how everything looks. So yeah, keep in mind what kind of lighting you have in your pieces. I completely brushed over that. I mean, it's technically over in the speed paint, but I can talk about it. The way I render shots, especially in clothing, there's this specific Laovaan tutorial I watched a while ago. I'm gonna link it in the description, and he kind of, before rendering, he airbrushes the whole thing into a gradient. And I kind of stole that, and that's how I render some pieces of clothing. So yeah, I do use the airbrush during my rendering, but I don't abuse it, and it's just almost like my base colors are airbrushed and not the rendering itself. Yeah, so in conclusion, I think the airbrush is a very valid tool in digital art. It can be tricky to get the hang of, but yeah, like it's actually really handy sometimes. Oh yeah, something else I wanted to talk about. Gradient maps. Gradient maps are, I think, one of the most underappreciated tools in digital art. Basically what they do is that they take your values of a selected area and you can pick what every shade of gray turns into. It's difficult to explain, but if your art program does have a gradient map tool, I recommend just messing around with it. It can be really useful for many different things. I use it mostly during coloring. Like, for example, I render everything on the same layer because I'm an insane person, right? But what if there is an item that has multiple colors, and rendering everything manually with multiple colors would be painful? Like, for example, the stripy glove she's wearing. I rendered it in one color, and then I duplicated the layer and I gradient mapped it into the second color that the stripes have, and then I erased out the stripe pattern to make it into the pattern it has. So yeah, like you can use gradient map to recolor something you've already rendered, basically. That's what I'm doing with her hair right now. I decided to give her the like raccoon stripes thingy. You know, if someone knows old fashioned, that's what I'm talking about. And instead of manually adding them, I just recolored her pre-existing rendered hair with gradient map. I hope I'm making sense with my explanation here. But yeah, I also gradient mapped the whole thing at the very end to kind of put it on a blend mode. Yeah, that's mostly when I use blend modes to finish up everything. Finishing touches in my art are very blend mode focused. I kind of change the overall values, colors, stuff like that. So yeah, I hope I explained everything semi-well. Hello, I decided to add one last segment to the video last minute. Here's the final illustration, and I'm gonna show you my layers. Basically it's like, ignore all the rejected backgrounds I have here. So, this was my very first draft, and then this was my final draft, and then this is my base color layer, and I render on my base color layers, so it kind of looks weird without the line art. And this is my line art layer, but the line art is already colored. And it is not one layer, keep that in mind. I have everything separately because I am very bad at organizing. Same with the base color, like I have everything separated. And then, I have the lace on her skirt on a different layer because I imported the lace from Clip Studio. And then, interestingly enough, I have, this is my finalizing layer, so I have the whole thing on a normal layer, and then I put a blend mode of a darken layer on top. See how it changes the colors and makes them more like united and moody. Ooh. And then I have the whole writing stuff to make it look aesthetic. But yeah, that was it for my layers, yay! Thank you for watching my video. Oh no, my voice is dying already. I recorded like all of that in 2 single takes without editing any out of it. I have no idea if I will touch it up. I'm lazy. Anyways, end of the video, rambling. Yes, back at it again. Thank you for watching, and I'm doing weekly uploads, so hopefully see you next week. Bye!